Hi guys, in this video I will show you 27 basic Hungarian expressions. The first is Szia. Szia means hi for one person. Sziasztok means hi you all. Yeah, so like more than one person. So let's practice it.
Szia. Szia. Sziasztok. Sziasztok.
The next one is Jó reggelt. Jó reggelt means good morning. The long form would be Jó reggelt kívánok. I wish you a good morning. Yeah? So basically, we usually just say the short form, Jó reggelt, but you can hear the T at the end. Jó reggelt. So Jó is good, reggel is morning, and the T is the sign of direct object. If you are just a tourist, you don't really need to know this, but if you want to know some grammar, so in Hungarian we have these things called direct objects. It's called the accusative case, if you want to know the fancy name, and we put these T's at the end. So it's important that you need to say this T at the end, yeah? So Jó reggelt, Jó reggelt, yeah? And yeah, the long form would be Jó reggelt kívánok. Kívánok is I wish, yeah? So Jó reggelt kívánok. And we also have Jó napot, which is like good day. I wish you a good day. Jó napot kívánok. But we usually just say Jó napot, yeah, with the T at the end. Then we have Jó estét, which is good evening, yeah. So este is evening, and estét is direct object evening. And then we have Jó éjszakát, which is good night. So how should you use that, yeah? So I can't give you like strict rules, but basically it's like szúnyogok. So mosquitoes. So basically you use Jó reggelt from 5 a.m. until kind of like 8, 9 a.m. Yeah, these are not strict rules. That's just how I would use it, kind of. And then good day, Jó napot. Yeah, you would use from like 9 a.m. until like 3, 4 a.m. 3, 4 p.m. Yeah, and then Jó estét. I think you would use that for 5, 6 p.m. Yeah, that's more like 6 p.m. Until the end of the night. And Jó éjszakát, which is good night, you use it when you go to sleep. So basically, if you just like kiss your spouse on the cheek and you turn and go to sleep, you would say Jó éjszakát. Yeah, and that's it. So let's practice it.
Jó reggelt. Jó reggelt. Jó napot. Jó napot. Jó estét. Jó estét. Jó éjszakát. Jó éjszakát.
Then we also have csókolom, which is a bit weird. So csókolom means I kiss you, but back then it was longer and we said csókolom a kezét, which was a formal way of speaking, and it meant I kiss your hand, yeah? We used to say it for ladies. I mean, not me, it was like back in the old days. Now we just only say csókolom, and there are like specific situations when you use that. So for me, I only use it for older women, like above 60 years old, yeah? So most adults would use csókolom for ladies who are over like kind of 60. When they have kind of that like grandma look, you know. It's a bit weird because back then I think the ladies weren't that self-conscious, but nowadays you can have like, hey, don't call me chocolate, I'm not that old, yeah. So they kind of like sometimes jokingly offended, or some of them sometimes they can get really offended. But you shouldn't care about that. So these are like facts. If she looks like an older lady, politeness, like. If you want to be polite, you call her or you address her with csókolom, yeah? Or you can just use Jó napot, yeah? Or any other things that I say, Jó reggelt, Jó napot. and jó estét, these are all good, and you don't need to say chocolom. But usually if I see an older lady with a grandma look, about kind of 60, I would use chocolom. Also kids use it for everybody, so every adult. I was like kind of like 18, 20 when I first was shocked with chocolom. In my apartment house, there was like a little kid, and he came in with the building with his mother, and he just said to me, chocolate. I was like, I'm not that old, yeah, but little kids like using that for every adult, and he looked at me like an adult. So from that point, I know that I was old, yeah. So anyways, kids use that, and also like from the old days, there are still some old people who was living that era, and like older people would use chocolate like even for young ladies. So this is really polite. So they are really nice man, and like say, oh, chocolate, or they even say chocolate a kezét, which is like I kiss your hand. Yeah, so you can see that. But if you are an adult, you only use it for older women, and if you want to avoid like some offended ladies, I don't think it's frequent, but sometimes you can meet these kind of people, and then they can get offended by that. You should just use jó napot and jó reggelt and jó estét. So let's practice it.
Csókolom. Csókolom.
How do you say goodbye? Yeah, so like see you later is viszontlátásra for the seeing you again, and we have a shorter form viszlát. Both of them are formal and polite. But if you just want to say something casually, like informally, I just say see ya. Yeah, so see ya is also good for like bye, see ya. Yeah, that's it. So let's practice it.
Viszontlátásra. Viszontlátásra. Viszlát. Viszlát. Szia. Szia.
The next one is köszönöm, which means thank you. Yeah. We also have köszi, which is thanks. Yeah, the shorter form. Köszi is like not formal. Yeah, so it's informal. So don't use it in the shops. I mean, again, this formality is a bit. Ezek a szúnyogok megölnek. These mosquitoes are killing me. So basically, if you go into a shop, you use formal way of speaking, yeah. But it's like Hungarians or everybody in their own language know the situations when they can use something else. So, for example, if I see like a shop assistant who is the same age like me and like it's really not that uptight, I would just use szia or köszi. Yeah, if you go into the post office or the shop or any kind of like official thing, you would use the formal way of speaking. Like native speakers know, okay, so now I can be a bit more casual in this situation. And how do you say you are welcome? So you can say two things. So one is szívesen, yeah. So szívesen means, I don't like to translate it really because some words are just not made for like to be translated. But szív is heart. Szíves is like with heart, but we don't really use that much, yeah. And szívesen is willingly or with heart, yeah. So, but don't think about the literal translation. You just use it for you are welcome, yeah. And we also have nincs mit. Again, not to translate it, but it's like nincs is nothing. No, so there isn't. Sorry. So nincs is means it's there isn't, and mit is like me is what, but like the long form would be like nincs mit megköszönni. So there is nothing to thank, yeah. So that's it, but you just say nincs mit. So szívesen and nincs mit. So let's practice it.
Köszönöm. Köszönöm. Köszi. Köszi. Szívesen. Szívesen. Nincs mit. Nincs mit.
Then how do you say sorry? So, actually I have a video about this, 17 ways how to say sorry in Hungarian with slight differences, but I will give you 3 options now. So you can say bocsánat, you can say elnézést, and you can also say sajnálom. Yeah. So the first 2 can also be used as excuse me. Yeah. So bocsánat and elnézést is also excuse me. Sajnálom is not good for that. So sajnálom is like I'm feeling sorry, kind of. Yeah, and you wouldn't use that for excuse me. Yeah. So bocsánat, elnézést, and sajnálom. And how do you say no problem? You just say semmi baj. So semmi is nothing, and baj is problem, trouble. Yeah, so semmi baj. So let's practice it.
Bocsánat. Bocsánat. Elnézést. Elnézést. Sajnálom. Sajnálom. Bocsánat. Bocsánat. Elnézést. Elnézést. Semmi baj. Semmi baj.
Then how do you say what's your name? So we have 2 options. The first one I like more. Hogy hívnak? Yeah. It's informal. The formal way would be hogy hívják, but I don't really want to go into the formal way. Usually you will use casual, informal way of speaking, and especially as a beginner I don't like to complicate things too much. So let's just stick with hogy hívnak. Yeah. And the other one would be like mi a neved, what's your name? That's literal. Mi a neved is what's your name, literally. And hogy hívnak is like how, hogy is how, hív is to call, and so hívnak is they call. So how do they call you? Yeah, so that's what it means, or how are you called if you think like in a passive way in English, yeah? So hogy hívnak? I would prefer to use that as opposed to mi a neved, but that's also good, yeah? And then how do you introduce yourself? So there are 3 ways, and the 3rd way is not good. Yeah. So the first one, I think in like 99%, I would say this: Dani vagyok. Literally means I am Dani. So vagyok is I am, and Dani is my name. So Dani vagyok, I am Dani. The second one would be Daninak hívnak. Yeah. So they call me Dani, or I am called Dani. Yeah. So what you shouldn't forget that you need to put this nek suffix at the end of your name. Yeah. So it's about vowel harmony. It's another topic. I'm not getting into that. But for example, my name should use nok. Yeah. So Dani nok, because it's a mixed vowel word, and mixed vowel words use back vowel suffixes. Yeah. But for example, if you are Péter, then you would say Péternek hívnak, yeah, because Péter is a front vowel word, and if you use a front vowel suffix, it's vowel harmony. You should check on that, or in the future I will make a video about that. I don't have it now. And the third option I don't like, and it took me a while to realize when I started to teach that we don't speak like that, because the third option is grammatically correct, but nobody speaks like that. Yeah. So the third option is Dani a nevem. Yeah. Nobody speaks like that. Yeah. It's the literal translation of the English. My name is Dani. So név is name, and a nevem is my name, and Dani a nevem is my name is Dani. Yeah. So basically, this is the literal translation of the English expression, but we don't speak like that. Yeah. You can only hear it in a James Bond movie when they say, "A nevem Bond, James Bond."
A nevem Bond, James Bond.
Yeah. So for some reason, it sounded cooler and better and special. So they translated that way because it said in the movie. It's like a so iconic line that they translate it that way, but usually we don't use it. We would only use that it's like when, okay, so a nevem Dani és nem Dávid. So if you want to highlight that my name is Danny and not David, yeah, so only like situations like that you would use Dani a nevem. But otherwise, no, just stick with Dani vagyok. And actually, I didn't tell you the real situation. So I think in every language, you wouldn't even say that I am Dani. Basically, you would just shake somebody's hand and say Dani. Yeah, so that's what's happening in Hungary. So if I meet a new person in Hungary, I would just say Dani, yeah, and shake his hands, kezet ráznék vele, and that's it, yeah. And if it's a girl, usually we give 2 kisses on the cheek, yeah, even if it's like a stranger. I mean, sometimes it depends. Sometimes you are just shaking even a girl's hand or a woman's hand. But usually you kiss in both cheeks, yeah? So for example, if I'm in a family gathering and my cousin brings his new girlfriend, I would definitely give 2 kisses on her cheek and say Dani, and she would say her name. So that's how it is. So let's practice it.
Hogy hívnak? Hogy hívnak? Mi a neved? Mi a neved? Dani vagyok. Dani vagyok. Daninak hívnak. Daninak hívnak. Péternek hívnak. Péternek hívnak.
Then how do you say how are you? So basically you say hogy vagy. Yeah? So it's again casual way of speaking. Hogy vagy? Jól, köszi. És te? Én is jól, köszi. So hogy vagy means how are you? When you say jól, köszi és te. So jól means well, köszi means thanks, and you és te. And then you answer én is jól, köszönöm. So I am well too. Thank you. So let's practice it.
Hogy vagy? Hogy vagy? Jól, köszi. És te? Jól, köszi. És te? Én is jól. Köszönöm. Én is jól. Köszönöm.
And the last one is örülök, hogy megismerhetlek. Very nice to meet you. But it's literally not the literal translation of very nice to meet you, because that would be really bad. So basically it means örülök, I'm happy. So we have a verb to be happy. So we don't say to be happy. We actually have a verb to be happy. Yeah, so örülök, hogy megismerhetlek. So hogy is like that. Hogy is also means how, but you can use it as a conjunction. Yeah, so I'm happy that, and megismerhetlek, I can get to know you. Yeah, so this is in Hungarian, it's an argumentative language. So basically we put a lot of stuff on just one word. So what is in English is like how many I can get to know you. It's 6 words in English, but in Hungarian you just say megismerhetlek. So the full expression is örülök, hogy megismerhetlek. Yeah? So let's practice it.
Örülök, hogy megismerhetlek. Örülök, hogy megismerhetlek. Örülök, hogy megismerhetlek.
And that's it for now, guys. I hope it was useful. Let me know in the comment section. It helps me if you subscribe and you like the video. And I also have a Patreon channel. Check it out. I put a lot of good materials up there. És ne feledjétek, a gyakorlás teszi a mester. And don't forget, practice makes perfect.